The only thing we have to
Beer.
is
Beer.
itself.
Beer. So many choices.
Only no function beer well without.
Woohoo! Beer!
Hello and welcome to another episode of Beer Busters. We're going to give you the news and reviews of your favorite brews. My name is not Dan Baker, and I am joined by my co-host and brewologist,
Steph Hefner.
And I am, in fact, the demented and fermented Wayne Baker. Unfortunately, your usual host you hear at the top of the show could not be with us this evening, so I am going to do my best to stand in his shoes for the evening. And the first thing I have to remember to do before we get any further is the usual housekeeping. Don't forget, you can keep up with us on the internet. We are at Beer Busters. I wrote this down. We are at Beer Busters on Twitter, Instagram, and I think TikTok. A Beer Busters podcast on Facebook and YouTube, where you can check out cool video podcast content. And beerbusterspodcast.com is our central location for all things Beer Busters. Add /shop to that URL and buy some cool merch. I think I hit all the things I had to say. Oh, and Patreon. Become a patron of the podcast. Patreon.com/beerbusters. Do that as well. So with that housekeeping out of the way, let's get into the nitty gritty. We have joining us today
Josie Schwartz. I'm the co-owner and brewer, and I do a lot of things at Suspended Brewing Company. Maryland's definitely smallest brewery, perhaps one of the smallest breweries in the country, in Baltimore.
Very cool. Very cool. As Steph and I were, before you hopped on the call, we were sort of reminiscing about our past experiences in Baltimore. And I don't think I've been to Baltimore since high school, to be honest. So what's like the beer scene like in Baltimore right now these days?
Yeesh. Funny enough, you would think I would be qualified to speak on this topic. I really don't feel qualified. Like I said, we're so small. I'm one of two full-time employees. And we just got our second full-time employee 6 months ago. So I stay inside of the four walls of Suspended so much. And when I'm not at Suspended, I'm usually not seeking beer. But yeah, we're growing. New people are being added. Unfortunately, we had some closings recently, but Baltimore is a very blue-collar town. I don't know. It's funny because we're situated between Philly, which is awesome, and I feel like has so much of the best of everything. And then right above Philly is, of course, New York, which has literally the best and the worst of humanity. And then, there's DC, which is like super, super high class and upscale. And so I don't know. I think about Baltimore's place, not in terms of just Baltimore itself, but kind of how it fits into that I-95 corridor. And we truly are Charm City. The breweries here kind of all fall into that category. So while I feel like we're all making kind of similar things, I mean, some of us, like here at Suspended, we're heavily Belgian. I mean, I love lagers. We love hoppy beer, so we make them as well. But, we typically might have one or two IPAs on the menu. Our friends at Diamondback, they kind of focus on lagers. They also do a little bit of mixed fermentation, but they're very, very traditional as well. They're influenced by the Czech school quite a bit. Our friends at Peabody Heights, they are the ones that are able to fill the gaps for kind of the masses, where they can do all the really cool technical styles. The old Bohemian lager that they do, the old Oriole Park, is absolutely lovely, lagered to perfection. But they also kind of have a lot of Disneyland in the beer as well, like a lot of kind of the crazy stuff on the menu. Like, I think the last time I went, we were doing a collaboration. They had 25 taps going,
Wow.
which is pretty nuts. Yeah. And then you've got folks like Guilford Hall that focus on just sort of German style beers, and, Wet City, they're small enough to where they get to do whatever they want. So kind of looking at it holistically, I mean, Baltimore has a pretty good range and kind of something for everything you want. But for the most part, I mean, people really kind of stay in their neighborhoods. Baltimore is a city of neighborhoods for sure. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that kind of answers the question. That was a very scenic route of any but
Well, I think it was a particularly interesting answer to the question because, a lot of people, oh, what's the beer scene like in your city? And you just talk about this brewery, that brewery, that, but putting it in the greater context of sort of this whole northeastern seaboard area that we're all sort of connected in really kind of makes sense. But focusing more in on Suspended, when did Suspended start and what brought you to Baltimore? Are you a Baltimore native?
I'm not. So I co-own Suspended with my partner Yasmin and her older brother Amir. They're native they grew up in Baltimore County, sort of in Baltimore was the place that they went, the place that they went out. We all went to the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, UMBC. I got a lot of retriever provincialism there. And so my father was in the service. We grew up all around. I was fortunate enough that I grew up in Italy. I spent like the most of my time in Italy. I'm mostly Italian by heritage as well, which is kind of cool that it overlapped. But yeah, Baltimore just kind of made sense. We got the idea for it back in 2013, founded the company. I was still in business school at the time. And I was just sort of working on my pitch and doing a pro forma and trying to figure out how I was going to pitch banks to actually give us money for this. And I ended up leaving my job in 2015. And we tried to open in Rockville, which is in Montgomery County, Maryland. It's one of the wealthiest counties in the United States. It was at the time extremely underserved with only 3 or 4 breweries, like craft breweries, depending on how you wanted to kind of define it. And so we tried to open there. I had residency there. I never changed it from college. It just sort of makes sense. It was underserved. And then the plan was eventually to move to Baltimore. The zoning folks in Rockville really gave us a tough time and we couldn't open there. So we kind of lost a year and a lot of money, but we eventually sort of made our way to Baltimore. In 2016, we signed our lease and then we opened up December 31st, 2017 for a New Year's bash, which was awesome.
Now, you guys are in the Pigtown neighborhood of Baltimore, and I have to admit, I don't know how Pigtown got its name. Is there a story behind that name of the neighborhood?
Yeah, I hope I don't mess this up too badly, but I'm pretty sure it was the case that because Pigtown it's in Southwest Baltimore. It sits right on the edge of the county. So Baltimore County, and a lot of the farms with a lot of livestock were in the county and they would get run up Washington Boulevard, which directly cuts from the city to the county. And there were a lot of slaughterhouses in Pigtown, which is a little bit ironic because we're all vegan. But yeah, so I'm pretty sure that's why Pigtown is called Pigtown. But I'm not all that sure. I'm not 100% positive.
That sounds like a perfectly plausible story to me. I believe it.
No, it works. 12 years ago, maybe, I went to a fundraising dinner at a place called the Stockyard in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which was named that because there were the cattle stockyard was right there in that area previously. And it was a fundraiser for the farm sanctuary, and Gene Bauer was there and spoke. And so it was sort of an ominous feeling, but also a very positive one to go from what the land was previously used for to enjoying a lovely vegan dinner and supporting a great organization. So positive change, right?
I like it.
I do want to mention I first discovered Suspended while dining at Double Zero, which I just found out that they closed, but was a vegan pizza restaurant in the Baltimore Harbor. I believe their location in New York is still open, but lovely meal. And we just asked what beer was on tap, and your Mexican lager was on tap. And, it's not often that I take a sip of a beer and it takes me a moment, but I had a bit of an experience when I tasted this beer. I was like, this is definitely one of the best Mexican lagers I have had in a long time. And I asked the server, I was like, who made this beer? Where are they? And he was like, yeah, they're in Baltimore. They're right near here. And then, I'm sitting at the restaurant, Googling you guys and reading. I'm like, it's a vegan brewery. So I had this dream 10 years ago that I was going to open my own brewery. I went to the Brewers Guild. I did my internship at a brewery, and, it didn't work out, but I wanted to open a vegan brewery. I'm like, these people did what I wanted to do 10 years ago. So, after that, like I, of course, was like, next time in Baltimore, I have to visit this brewery. But I guess I'm mainly sharing the story because I drank a lot of beer, but there was just something about that Mexican lager that it just like, I mean, we had like at least 2 or 3 of them while we were having dinner. I just kept ordering the same beer over and over again. And then when we were driving through Baltimore, next time I stopped at the brewery just to have that Mexican lager again. So I know that you said you love Belgian styles, but I think you guys have a special sweet spot with those lagers as well. I don't know if I had a question there. I think I just started to indulge myself and tell my story.
No, thank you so much. I mean, that really means a lot. We recently just switched our kind of flagship lager. The idea is, again, we're so small. We did 145 barrels last year, just to put it in context, and that was our best ever. It's like Union, which is, I think they're the biggest brewery in Baltimore. They did 20 to 30,000 barrels every year. So we're literally 150 times smaller than the largest brewery in Baltimore. So, we don't brew a lot. So that's why we don't really have a ton of hoppy beers or a ton of lagers. We just try to stick with one and make a really awesome lager or just a really awesome hoppy beer. And the Trophies was one that was really near and dear to our heart. We had a batch. It was the first one ever. We do a lot of mixed culture beer, as I mentioned, and it went kind of sour when we didn't want it to go sour. I mean, it wasn't like super sour. It just was not true to brand. And so we just ended up blending that with some other super sour beer to kind of balance it out. And then we used a new lager yeast that finishes a lot quicker. The Trophies typically takes us 8 weeks. We give it sort of at least 2 months of tank time. And so we were really happy with that, but we really like the new one. We replaced it with a beer called Hidden in Light. And it was a lager yeast I had sort of been eyeing for a while. It's a high pressure yeast. It finishes very quickly. So it finishes in 2 weeks rather than 8 weeks. So just to get another lager on tap for all of our accounts. And then also, for the brewery, because I want a nice balance in the portfolio, we switched to that. But to our surprise, we really liked it even better than the Trophies. And so we kind of have been rocking with that for a little while. I'm not sure if you had that maybe when you were.
Yes, when we were in town for Janet Jackson, that was on and it was lovely. But that Mexican lager will have a special place in my heart. So I look forward to if and when it comes back.
Sure. Yeah. No, I plan to bring it back up like eventually for sure.
Music to my ears. You mentioned your portfolio, and one thing that really stands out is not only the diversity of your tap list, but also sort of your key that goes along with your tap list, the color coding that you do. Do you want to talk about that? I thought that was really unique and a neat way to present beers to people.
Oh, thanks so much. Yeah. Well, thank you for noticing. I'm glad it was helpful because again, I'm the only full-time employee, so I'm just sort of some DIY idiot trying to figure everything out. And, most of the people that come into our tap room, we're a little community brewery. So they're not really sort of craft beer heads or, people who are super deep. You always have that kind of, I literally, my shoulders almost literally lean to one way or the other, like with ambivalence when I'm like, well, should I call this beer what it actually is? Or should I sort of try to put it as it would be most helpful for people to read on a menu? And so I just sort of tried to start color coding things to really help people, just kind of give them an idea. I mean, we're very sample friendly at the brewery. In fact, we try to insist people try things because, trying 2 or 3 beers, even if we can get you to try like 1 or 2 things extra, it might be the difference between a beer that you will drink and one that you will kill for. And so, giving people just a little bit of a sample. And I think it's like, unfortunately, we have to sort of disabuse people of that kind of thinking that like, no, you don't deserve to taste something. Or it's like, because I'm on the other side of the counter too. And I go to places and they're real stingy with samples and it's real silly. And so we really even have to work hard just to sort of like convince people like, nah, it's cool. Like, this is what we're here for. But even though like some people, they just sort of are a little bit shy, or maybe they just want to look at a menu by themselves. And so we started color coding things to give people a little bit of a heads up of like, okay, well, if roasty is what you're into, then these are kind of the beers you would like, or, all of these beers are sour because, we do mixed culture beers, and even that is kind of jargony. And like some mixed culture beers, we use Brett strains that don't express a lot of acid. And then we use some that express a lot of acid when they are finished. And so just being able to separate these beers, not really by, ale or lager or, any type of like mixed culture or any type of sort of technical jargon, but just by like, hey, this one's kind of funky and this one's kind of sour and this one's really crispy. And that was sort of the idea there.
What I really appreciate about that system is that it doesn't have the pretension baked in that like you should know this. Like you're not telling people this like, well, obviously it's an IPA, so obviously it's hoppy, duh. Like it's like, no, I mean, if you don't know, that's fine. We're here to educate you, and like not taking that sort of like gatekeeping stance of like you should already know this when you walk in the door. I really like that aspect of it.
And we've talked about the need or hatred of beer styles many times on the show, but defining a beer as an IPA does not automatically mean it's hoppy, though. There are IPAs that are super bitter more than hoppy. There are beers that are IPAs that are super sweet.
There are ones that taste like milkshakes.
It's especially important. Again, you mentioned the Belgian styles like a Saison. A Saison can mean so many things. Like, is it a spicy dry Saison? Is it a really funky Saison? Like, just, you don't always know what to expect just based on the beer style, because brewers and business owners are forced to put a label on things, but it is a way to communicate with the consumer. And I think that you found a creative way and a kind of a foolproof way to communicate these things to your consumer, for those that understand beer styles or don't.
Yeah, no, and I'm right there with you. I really like it. It's funny. It's almost like, using the BMI chart for, a measure of good health, where it's like, beer styles are very arbitrary. I mean, to put a flag in the ground and to say like, this is a Saison, or this is a Hefeweizen, or, this is X, Y, or Z, it's very arbitrary. And, I understand the need for some sort of metric or some sort of, blueprint in order to judge things against. But yeah, I mean, you're totally right. I mean, Saison in particular, it's such a junk can category where it just, people, they're farm beers. People were making whatever they could. They were using whatever they had. And so, again, and again, like both of you touched on, I mean, even hoppy, hoppy is another junk can word where it's like, it doesn't really mean much, because hops they have hundreds of compounds, and depending on how you use them when you're making a beer, you can, literally heat them up and create an isomer, which creates bitterness, or you can put them at a lower heat so it can express, certain characteristics as opposed to another one, or you can steep them in the beer after, there's a finished product. And of course, alcohol extracts flavor differently than heat does. And so, there's just a whole range of things that are just not they're not qualitative nor objective. And so trying to find some common language to just communicate with people like, this is what you should expect. And even so, I mean, we really try to be brief yet kind of informative to give you the basics. But I mean, frankly, that's why we try to insist people try things so much. People will ask us, they'll look at the menu and they'll say, well, what about this one? And I'm like, you know what, let me give you a taste, because that's the easiest way, because what I might think is sour might not be sour for you, or vice versa. And so, just get out of people's way a little bit. Let them taste some beer.
Let them figure it out. Yeah. I think beer styles are good for signifiers of method and tradition. Like, and you mentioning Saisons as farmhouse ales kind of like sparked that idea in my head, where like it's one of a Saison is that has a history to it. It's that style because of the ways it was made, and the ways it was made were, it was produced that way out of necessity. And I always find that fascinating, like the origin of beer styles. And I think beer styles are important to signify that. But you're right, because beer is an interesting thing in that, like, you can't just look at the ingredients and get an idea of what it's going to taste like unless you know what different malts do, what different hops do. But and then, like you mentioned, even then the process changes the flavors and characteristics that those things impart to the final product. So you can't just be like, well, yeah, it has water, barley, hops, and yeast. So, that's what's in it, but that doesn't tell you anything about how it tastes,
Yeah, I could tell you maybe like an allergen identifier, but other than that, it's like, that's the beauty. That's the beauty of beer, really, is that beer is the most the most complex fermented beverage on the planet. I mean, we not only have more primary ingredients, but we have a more dynamic process. I mean, I'm not sort of like, I'm poo-pooing on wine a little bit. Most people are not giving it the full range it deserves. I think that there are very heavily formed traditions that people feel very compelled and producers feel very compelled to kind of adhere to, because there's some really cool natural wines that are like really awesome. There's a lot of producers that are exploring that world with skin contact and second pressings and things like that. But it's like, I think of this primary school problem where it's like, this person has, Sam has a pair of pants and a t-shirt and a belt and, pair of shoes. How many different outfits, can he make? And it's like, oh, if you give him a jacket and a scarf and a hat, how many more outfits? And it's like, just by introducing like a jacket and a hat, he's got like a billion combinations, right? And it's like, it really does matter that, wine is mostly, for the most part, fruit juice and yeast. And it's like, beer is, water. Water's such a big thing. I mean, the hardest part about making wine is growing grapes, which again, I'm not saying it's easy or something like that, but, you've got all different types of cereal grains. I mean, even in a very traditional canon of malts, you've got rye, wheat, barley, spelt. I mean, all sorts of different types of grain that brewers are using very regularly. And then you've got a myriad of hops. You've got a myriad of yeasts. You've got, Cerevisiae. You've got essentially Saccharomyces cerevisiae, which is the ale yeast. You've got Saccharomyces pastorianus, which are all the strains of lager. Then you've got a whole different genus. You've got Brettanomyces. And again, beer can really go end zone to end zone. Like any culinary ingredient that you can think of, beer can incorporate it very well. Like, I've seen chocolate wines and things like that, but, they're not, it's chocolate wine is not the same as a nice chocolate stout. I mean, beer can just really play with anything. I mean, I saw a soy sauce barrel on, one of the barrel brokers that sends me sort of marketing emails. And the funny thing is that a brewer will find out how to use it really well. And so, again, you can go from roasty, you can go from hoppy, you can go from dry, you can go from very sweet, you can go from, tons of acid in a beer, and they're all just absolutely lovely. I feel like more or less with other kind of beverages, again, whiskeys are lovely, tequila is lovely, spirits are lovely, wine is lovely for sure. But you're really like between the 40s, beer is end zone to end zone. And, that's what makes it so beautiful, but that's what makes it so hard too, because there's over 9,000 of us in the US alone, independent craft brewers. So, really going to one brewery and Rolodexing whatever you're looking at a menu to something you had before, wishing it was that and not really getting that, or maybe getting something different. It just makes it really tough. And so we try to educate as much as we can by introducing palates to actual samples.
Yeah. I mean, I think an actually descriptive description of a beer rather than relying on style labels is like a step towards better communication, but just handing someone a beer and being like, taste it is like the most direct, as you say, like the most direct way to just explain to you, well, what's it like? Try it. I mean,
yeah. And that's the coolest thing too, right? Because again, you go to breweries because you want to try new things, right? It's like, back in the day, it used to be the case, like especially pre-prohibition, there was a brewery in every neighborhood because fermentation science wasn't all that well understood, and refrigeration wasn't all that prolific. And, people had to drink it close to the source or else it would sour. Now it's the case. We have superhighways and refrigerated trucks, and we've got planes that can get things from here to there very quickly. And so we could, make a beer on one side of the planet and send it to another side of the planet, which we do very often. And it could be true to brand, but yet every year people demand more local breweries because breweries they're more than just sort of like a beer style. They're more than just sort of like a source of clean beer. And, breweries are just, they're so special in that way. And I think they should be looked at more like restaurants rather than breweries, because people think, oh, you're a brewery. I've been to a brewery. You make the same thing. And, in the same way you wouldn't expect a burrito at Chipotle to taste like sort of, I don't know, a nice plate from Veg in Philly, which is my favorite restaurant.
Veg is
Have
pretty
you
awesome.
have you been to their new restaurant in Westchester yet?
I have not. I was not even hip to it.
Yes. Ground Provision.
Ground
we went
Provisions,
there. Yeah, we went there on my birthday. It's amazing. It's
Like what?
utterly amazing. It is. So that you can get a reservation to get a table in the dining room, and it's a prefix menu. Every night it's different. It's based on whatever's in season, and they just bring you 6 courses, and you can add a wine pairing if you want. There's also porch seating, and that's first come first serve, and that has an a la carte menu. And then they also have a market area where you can buy products to go, including refrigerated items that they've made on site and other vegan products. But
Wow.
it I love Veg. I mean, I've been they're fans of them since Horizons days. I mean, I remember going to Horizons when it was just off South Street. So I've been eating at their restaurants for close to 2 decades. But that meal was, yeah. So if you can make the trek up here, it's like just north of downtown Westchester in this beautiful farmhouse, and it was a meal to die for. It was so good.
Okay. I thought you meant Westchester, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Westchester, Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Got you. Sorry. I thought you meant north of downtown, like Philadelphia.
No.
Yeah, I went to Westchester University for my first semester of college.
Oh, then you know that area very well. Yeah. So, like the downtown area where like the college is, and like, street parking and all that. You go just like north on south on 202, I guess it is there. If you just go south to, out of 202, just out of like the main hub of Westchester, like it's still technically Westchester proper, but it's like just off in this nice little quiet farmhouse area. And yeah, it's amazing.
Cool. Which I actually think 202 is at that point in the juncture. It's Baltimore National Pike. Like I think it's
it's right where they merged together.
Yeah.
Like you would go right to go into Westchester.
Yeah.
And then you go left to like head towards everywhere else. And it's like right off of there. I'm doing a terrible job explaining this, aren't I?
I'm excited. Can't wait. Thanks for telling me. But yeah, no, I think like, again, like to kind of bring it back, I do think that breweries are just more than, products. I think that people hold beer in the same category across the board when, the truth is like what we do at Suspended couldn't be more different than, the vast majority of most breweries.
Yeah. I think that's another situation where beer styles become a detriment to the uneducated consumer. Because like you say, you go to brewery A and you get their, American Pale Ale, a real simple style. You go to brewery B and you get their American Pale Ale. It's probably completely different. And to your point about shipping beer from one side of the world to the other, is we've also created a situation where you can go to a McDonald's anywhere in the world and the food's going to taste exactly the same. So people are used to that. They're used to that level of consistency. And so I think, you should expect to go to a brewery and have a unique experience, unique to that brewery, even if they're making the same styles of beer as someone else.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that, to kind of piggyback on that statement in particular is like, we're more than the product we make, like at Suspended, for example, I'll use us because I know us the best. We don't have any TVs. We refuse to sort of participate in Ravens games and O's games, tailgates, or any type of thing like that. We don't host cornhole tournaments. We don't, again, like I'm not trying to beat anybody up. I'm just saying like what many breweries do. They're all different types. There are pub breweries that have a restaurant. There are taproom breweries. There are garage breweries that are more or less just sort of like where the tap room's an afterthought. I mean, our tap room was really the forefront of what we wanted to be. We wanted to sort of build a company that could positively shape the world and then kind of influence people on this is what you should expect from a company outside of whether or not we're a brewery or not. And so, rather than TVs, we have a small art gallery. It's like, rather than like a cornhole tournament, we hold art shows. And so rather than all of the sort of typical brewery stuff, it's like it's fundraisers, or it's, a lot of times we're a neighborhood brewery. So we host events that are too big for people's homes, birthday parties and graduation parties and going away parties and anything that you can think of that you might want to host in your home, but it might be a little bit too small, or maybe you just don't want that many people in your home. That's really the purpose of our brewery. And again, I think just holding breweries in the same category is wrong in that way, because we try very hard to think about what it feels like to step into our brewery, and what it feels like to have a beer under our roof, and what it feels like to have somebody truly care about finding you a beverage that you're going to enjoy, or finding you something you might have never had before, or something you may have had before but didn't know this is why it's supposed to be like that. And so that's why I feel more strongly about insisting breweries be categorized as more like we hold restaurants, rather than just sort of, oh, this is a brewery, I've been to a brewery before.
Yeah, more. I mean, and breweries are like modern, small independent breweries are community spaces. They are gathering spaces. They are, like you said, places to hold events. And I think there is still an idea, maybe among some groups of people, that a brewery is a production facility and not like a destination. And like you say, it is. Most breweries, the most successful breweries, especially, tend to be hyper local focused and a community gathering spot that has beer.
Well, and part of the description of your brewery even says to be an uplifting presence in our community. And I think that the way you just spoke about it being that community space, I think is just a great example of how you guys are doing that.
Thank you.
We also have interwoven throughout the conversation, I don't know if we said it explicitly, that Suspended Brewing is 100% vegan, cruelty free, as well as all your involvement in the community. Could you just talk a little bit why that's important to you as a business owner, and like what's involved in running a business? What are the challenges of keeping that up as a business?
Yeah, I mean, I like to really talk about this and kind of highlight these points, because running a brewery is not the most profitable thing that we could do. But we feel like it's important because the brewery is a way for us to have a platform that's bigger than any of us individually. And even by having that platform, even though, say, we operate with 100% clean electricity, we are nearly waste neutral. We divert well over 95% of our waste stream from landfills and incineration by weight and by volume. We do some really cool things with water, like efficiency and water conservation, material selection, reclamation, not purchasing anything with toxins or VOCs. I mean, we're very painstaking with every single decision that we make. And we've really drawn a set of rules that put a box around us that inhibit us from growing in certain ways. But nonetheless, it's really important to us because, again, the world is a very depressing place. It's very heavy. And it's kind of a way for us to interact with the world. So one, it's a way for us to sort of live our values, to define a code and live by it, but also to sort of like hold up a mirror or hold up a sort of like a beacon of light of encouragement. So we don't have to sort of point fingers and condemn people that don't want to join our parade. We get to say like, hey, yeah, we make this awesome beer and here's why you should feel really good about it. And it's a way to sort of show people that, you can do this without experiencing compassion burnout. You can do this without feeling like the world is overwhelming and I'm a drop in the bucket. So what difference would I make? Because the point we like to make over and over and over again, not only to people for whom we get to talk to across the bar, but for our other colleagues, businesses, bars, restaurants we distribute to, anybody really that we talk to, is that, we're regular people. I don't come from any vast sums of wealth. I don't have any particular great influence. I don't have any clout. And so our superpower is our consumption. I mean, it is intentional, well thought out consumption and giving our dollars on what we buy to places that matter, things that make a difference in the world, places that align with our values. And so that's kind of how everyday person 1, 2, 3 becomes super powerful. because we're consuming every single day. And when we do that and we add it up over a lifetime, it not only makes a difference, it makes all the difference. And I think that it's hard. It's really, really, really hard because, again, the world is very depressing. The things that we see are very hard to kind of carry around. And so it's hard to kind of coach yourself into that mentality and reminding yourself that it makes a difference when you choose to spend your dollars at a small place that shares your values. And so that's what we always really wanted to be. I mean, we're very lucky that beer is our art. We didn't open a brewery to make money. We didn't open a brewery to gobble up every tap handle in the city. We didn't open up a brewery to sort of redefine beer. We just wanted to make art, and we wanted to have a company that positively shapes the world and that quietly reminds you that this is in your reach. It's humanly possible, so you should consider it within your reach. And we do it, so can you. And here's how you do it.
And I think it's very important. As you said, like, by having the brewery sort of amplifies the influence that you can have. It also shows that it is possible to operate a business responsibly. Like it's a lot of times you hear the excuse that, like, you can't have more environmentally friendly considerations in your business because you just can't afford it. It just doesn't work. The cost of doing business is being dirty, is, exploiting people. It's just, it's the cost of doing business. And more we're seeing a lot of small businesses like Suspended, being those beacons of light and inspiration, being like, look, we can be entrepreneurs and still be good forces in the world. And I think it's important to teach consumers that it matters where you spend your money. It's also important to teach business owners that you can run your business with your values. Like, you don't have to give that up to be successful. And I think it's important to be an example as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. I mean, again, none of us lack access to information on how we can do certain things or kind of what's what or the impacts of XYZ. It's just, we're truly social creatures. When we see people, like, if you want to really see this point at work, look at any product that the Kardashians are promoting and then look at the sales after one Instagram post. I mean, we are truly social creatures. We care deeply about what our peers are doing. We care deeply about what others are doing. I mean, we're the only species that we know of that cares about origins. We're the only species that we know of that cares about intentions, right? It's like, when I would give my cat some catnip, she didn't care if it was fair trade or organic or, if it was made by, people in Bangalore that didn't get a bathroom break. Humans are the only questions that are asking that. I mean, you look at even like a piece of flesh or a piece of meat. I mean, some people might eat it if it's a cow, and some people might eat it if it's a lamb, or some people might eat it if it's kosher, or some people, like, we are so silly in all of the things that we classify everything. We're the only species that does it. But, on the same token, it's sort of the idea is to understand what people care about and what their habits are and how they form these habits and how they form their opinions. And to be able to do it in a way like Suspended is we try to be very disarming in a way that's not pointing fingers, because, again, we've all been there. I mean, before I was vegan, I explicitly would tell people that I was just vegetarian, and I made sure they knew I was not vegan. Because, it was such a dirty word. And then, of course, like, it just took one person, it just took one instant that kind of put me over the edge. And, it sort of just, I decided to kind of ditch dairy, and now it's such a big part of my identity. It's such a big part of why I sleep so easy at night. And so, again, we don't ever want to beat anybody up. We just want to say, like, this is what we're doing. We really like it a lot. We think you could like it too.
I don't think that people realize that vegan beer, that label is even necessary. Because I will, I question ingredients. I've been vegan/vegetarian for 20 years of my life. So I'm very familiar with ingredients and the questions to ask. And these are things that you learn when you're in that realm. And I've also been asked, well, what about beer isn't vegan? So usually the conversation for me starts with the filtering process, because that's, the diatomaceous earth and the findings that are added. And, that was usually the initial answer. But now with lactose being added in beer and all of these non-Reinheitsgebot ingredients being used, even things that are not vegetarian, animal products being added to them, goat brains being added to beer. That's like the example that comes. But do you maybe want to talk a little further about some parts of the brewing process that you pay special attention to or have to pay special attention to assure that everything is vegan and cruelty free?
Yeah, well, fortunately, goat brains aren't a typical ingredient. Fortunately, most beer is vegan, like you touched on. A lot of people will use lactose because it's not a readily fermentable sugar by Saccharomyces. It's not digestible, not a very easily metabolized ingredient, and so they use it to kind of put body in beer. You could just as easily use maltose, which is a really long chain of carbohydrates. It's a long chain sugar. So, there's a lot of ways that you can sort of get to the same place without using animal products. And again, it's like, I feel like most people are good. I feel like most people, if they saw the conditions for which these products needed, like these animals needed to go through in order for these products to get to market, like people would realize they don't align with their values. They're not things they want. And especially when you look at the other side of the coin and you could sort of get there on a very more peaceful, benign path. I just don't think people would care that much, especially since you can make a stellar product without it. And so fortunately, we don't have to do too much. It's not, I don't feel like we're losing too much by having only vegan beer. The hardest part about being a vegan company is, like, for example, food trucks. Most food trucks are not vegan. And as a vegan company, I can't in good conscience host a food truck that is not within our values, that is serving animal products. And so again, we're playing by a different set of rules. And a lot of people, it's like, I get it. They want to eat while they drink. And most people, if they wanted to eat vegan, they would be vegan. And so I'm not disillusioned by that at all. But nonetheless, I mean, we just try to make a really, really, really good product. Like you said, most of the culprits is lactose. Maybe after that, maybe oyster stouts and things like that for salinity. I see, seafood being put into beer and things like that. But and then also, like you said, with like clarifying beer, there's isinglass, which is fish bladders. Guinness was the biggest user of that, and I think it was the end of 2017 that they switched just to plant enzymes, because one, it's a no-brainer process wise, it's cheaper, it's easier, and then they just sort of realized that tradition for no reason, right? The brewers at that time, they were using isinglass because that was the best thing they knew of. But now we can design enzymes that precipitate clarification so much better. Science is just way past where they were at. And so, Guinness finally let go of that silly tradition. And, again, I'm not trying to beat up Guinness. They were just the biggest user. That was the very obvious example. But so luckily, again, isinglass is not really a thing because there are so much better ways. We have closed mechanical cooling. We've got seaweed derivatives that work absolutely much better. So we have better alternatives. And that's really, I think, how you get people to change is you have to give them a reason to change. You have to give them either a cheaper alternative or a better alternative. And thankfully, kind of in the beer world, we're there. With lactose, I think that because milkshakes are kind of like a style, people feel like they have to put lactose. But like us and our friends at Sapwood, we did a vegan milkshake IPA, and it was fantastic. Kind of disabusing people that you needed lactose in order to do that. But I just think it's just a matter of time. It's like the arc of justice is very, very, very slow for any type of silly oppression that you can think of. It just takes a really long time.
Have you thought about adding a kitchen, or is food something you see in the future of Suspended, or just beer?
I thought about it. We just, frankly, we just struggle. We just struggle a lot with trying to make world-class beer. And that's really our focus. And we thought about a kitchen for a little while, but we just thought it might be a little bit better to work with our friends who have kitchens, who have great cocktail programs, who have great wine programs. And we just saw it as a better opportunity to get our beer in those places so that, again, the whole point of going out is to be social, is to be with other people. And not everyone might share the passion for beer that we all have. So, being able to be in places where people can have a multitude of food options, where they can have a multitude of cocktail options and wine options and other things like that, that was really the thought there, was like, let's start distributing and let's try to work in that way rather than trying to sort of kill ourselves to, make very measly dollars in our tap room, which, our tap room is the least profitable part of our business. And so, but we feel like it's important for us to open up because we love our neighborhood. It's good for our neighborhood. We feel like it's important for us to open up because it's important for people to truly feel like what it feels like to drink a beer under our roof and to see who we are. Because again, we're small. If you come to the tap room, I'm most likely going to be there. If you have questions about any part of our company or operation, that's the beauty. You can come and you can talk to us and you can try everything that we have. And so again, it's really important for us to have a tap room and a tap room presence. But in terms of having a kitchen, we just felt like our time would be better spent working with other wonderful places that already have a great food program rather than us trying to kill ourselves to make world-class vegan food as well.
Now, I would like to touch on the physical design of the tap room, because I feel like there were a lot of purposeful decisions made when you guys were designing that. You walk in, beautiful light in the front, such like a classy sitting area to enjoy beers. And then as you go up the few steps to where the bar is mobile, correct? On wheels?
Yeah. None of us had ever opened a service establishment before. And so my background was sort of sustainability. And I worked with the facilities group at a university. And one of the things I learned there was everything that they bought, they put on wheels so that, one, the space was functional in case it needed to shift and change. And because getting anything officially approved or moved through a university was like so slow. And then also for cleaning purposes as well. And so we kind of like that idea too, where we wanted our space. We didn't want to presume that we would know how it should be used right away. And just by putting things on casters allowed better cleaning, and then also more uses for the space for people who might want to do certain things. And again, which is good because we've, cleared the bars out for certain, like we had yoga in the brewery, big yoga. I mean, every inch of that brewery was used and everything, all the bars were pushed away. And we've had weddings in the space, again, birthday parties. I mean, and so having the option to move things around on any given day is really, really, really helpful.
I just love that. I thought that was super unique, and what a smart idea.
Yeah. And then also, speaking of design, I mean, again, good design should just work. Like it should just work. Like when you go to a website and you're able to do everything that you need to do there, you don't think, wow, what a good design. It's just nice. The fact that, Nietzsche would in fact say, like, counter to a lot of the ancient wisdom, which would put a lot of emphasis on thinking and how, I think, therefore I am, or, Socrates, if you will. And he would say, like, the unexamined life is one not worth living. Well, Nietzsche would say, well, no, it's when you're not thinking is when you're living the most. When you're at a concert listening to a piece of music, or if you're just looking at a piece of art and you're not thinking about anything, like that's when you're alive the most. And that's kind of really what we wanted to do, is just make a space that was easy to use and easy to find and accessible to everyone. And, whether that's literal ADA accessibility or, conscious of what size our glasses are and whose hands they can fit into, and it's like, it's funny, we put up, the pride and the trans flag our first year for Pride celebration, and it just felt silly to take it down. Like it just really, really felt silly to take it down. And it was like a way for us to sort of like send a clear signal about who we were without being cheesy about it, or without like, and again, to kind of like let people know what kind of a space that they were in. And, everything from that to not having TVs to, the type of artists that we work with, the type of organizations that we host to use our space. I mean, all of it, every little single thing is intentional, from, a sociological standpoint to an ecological standpoint to literally what type of materials they are. And so, we try to be very thoughtful about our tap room. And again, that's going back to what I was saying before. That's why we feel like it's important for us to have as much taproom hours as we can. But again, like we try to send as much beer out of house where appropriate.
Well, and those decisions don't go unnoticed. And I hope that other businesses can recognize that and see the value in it. We are all in the Philly adjacent area. Baltimore is not our home space. It's not far. We can get there in an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on what traffic wants to be. But, I will go out of my way if I'm in the Baltimore area to stop at Suspended to get a beer, not just because you guys make banging lagers and delicious beers, but because it is unapologetically a safe space. As soon as I walk in there, I feel welcomed. And, I think that is a very important thing, especially, and you sort of mentioned earlier about how sad and scary the world is right now. And for many categories of people. And I think now more than ever, it's important for, anyone that has any sort of say in things, whether, you have a voice on a podcast or, a social media page, or you are a business owner, just any little intentional decision you can make to let people know that you are a safe and welcoming place is so powerful and so important. So I thank you for doing that.
Yeah. I mean, truly, it just makes sense. I mean, again, it's like, we try to be very, very accessible to everybody. And, again, craft beer it's a very wide industry. Baltimore is like last time I checked, it's 63% Black, so it's like, we try to realize like, okay, how can we make the space? How can we make people feel included? I mean, it's nice that we are able to create a space that can welcome everybody. Truly, that's how societies thrive. I mean, that's how societies are advanced, is by having places that, people don't feel like they have to be siloed, or, that they can sort of kind of come together. It's a very simple principle. Like, for communities to thrive, they need a place to commune. And it's really nice. I mean, even though we've been there almost 6 years, like we're in our 6th year now, I mean, we still get people that come in and they're like, yeah, I've lived here for, I've lived in this neighborhood for a long time. It's my first time in here. And so, we don't take that for granted. And, we really enjoy the communal aspect of our company, which is like definitely our favorite part.
Absolutely. And as a particularly a brewery, as we talked about earlier, being like a community gathering space, like you said, is a place for communities to grow and thrive. It's very important that those types of spaces in particular are safe for everyone. And so it's always good to see.
I want to crack open a beer. I was drinking my tea first. You get it? Funny story. The first time we were there, we picked up 2 bottles. One of them we already drank. And then the second time we were there, we picked up another bottle. And then we realized the bottle we picked up is the bottle we already have in the fridge, which I'm not sad about. I don't remember which one it is. She's getting it out of the fridge. Watercolor Dreams.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Which I believe you had some iteration of this on tap as well, correct? Am I wrong?
Yeah, no, we do. We actually do. We're so flush with beer now. Like I said, I've been the only full-time employee for the past 5 years, and it was just in the past 6 months that we've had a second full-time person, and we've had a production person, and so we've been super prolific. We have all 12 taps going plus 2 kegerators, and we still don't have enough taps for all of the beer that we have in kegs. But I love the Watercolor Dreams. I'm actually drinking right now a beer that's similar to it. It's from Australia. It's by a company called Wildflower. It's just called organic table beer. It's 2.9%. It's re-fermented in the can. The Watercolor Dreams is kind of my ode to Petite Prince, which is Jester King's farmhouse beer, which is theirs is 2.9%, and it's re-fermented. And again, like a lot of these things, the Belgians figured out very quickly. Well, maybe not very quickly. I don't know if that's the case, but they figured out fermenting very dry and then re-fermenting in the bottle or the can. It makes such a difference. These yeast-driven beers that are just sort of like a little bit of grain, a handful of hops and yeast, that makes it so important for that second fermentation. And that's one of the cool things that I'm really excited about that we do is we've been can conditioning beers. So we just started this last month. We have a Belgian Amber Ale, which is, again, sort of my ode to Fat Tire, which was my first craft beer. And we, again, ferment it very dry, and then we re-ferment it into the can. Part of that is because we can't afford like a big dog canning line. We just have like a single head canning system. And so we're can conditioning beers in the same way we would sort of bottle condition wild beers. And we've had really good success with that. The Belgian yeast tend to work very quickly, which is, very nice because Belgian beers are lovely. And the Watercolor Dreams was one of our first beers that we started doing in that vein. Like after we sort of figured out a good lager that we were happy with, and a good hoppy beer we were happy with, and a good roasty beer that we were happy with. And then we sort of had like Ledo, which is our sort of mixed culture flagship. It's a sour beer. It's a lambic inspired beer. And so we sort of had like hoppy, crispy, like a nice crispy lager, roasty, and sour. And then we felt like, okay, well, we get to do one for us. We get to do this little funky table beer, and it's 3.5%. It's carbonated to champagne levels. You could slow pour it and whip the meringue on the head and build just like a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful pour. And you could literally, again, it's built for doing things. It's built for talking to people on a podcast. It's built for, brew days. It's built for mowing lawns. It's built for the origins of these beers are literally built for like field work. So,
you are right in all those things, but I want this with Thanksgiving dinner. Like this honestly gives me like Saison DuPont, or those classic dry Belgian saisons that like pair well with literally any food. And like, I seriously, first of all, Wayne, you would.
Sounds like I would really like that. It sounds like my kind of beer.
But like, this is the kind of beer that I want to go grab when like Thanksgiving dinner. It would pair very, very well with a tofurkey and my fabulous vegan green bean casserole.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree too. Like, we feel very strongly that beer deserves a spot at the dinner table. And, historically, again, beer was always at the table. Beer was the thing that people would drink because water wasn't guaranteed to be free of bacteria. And people, children would drink it. I'm not necessarily advocating that children.
Hold on. That's also the absolute worst advertisement for beer. Drink it because it won't kill you like water will.
Well, maybe not the worst. Maybe it'll save you.
What you're saying is 100% historically accurate. It's just that's where my brain went. Is like, this is like the worst commercial ever for beer. But anyway, I'm sorry.
No, it's true. I mean, and thank goodness science is advanced where it is, and water is pretty generally reliable, especially, well, really in this country for sure. But yeah, I mean, beer, we're the dominant alcoholic beverage. We're consistently over half of the alcoholic beverage market on the planet. And, again, even in this country where we're the home of triple IPAs and all sorts of crazy beers, the national average is still 4.6%. I mean, most of the beers that people consume are lager beers that are either 4.2 or 4.6%, whether you're in the United States or England or somewhere else. But yeah, we really like this beer because it's not a typical lager. It's made with a mix of sort of Brettanomyces that doesn't make a lot of acid. It's very funk forward. And then it's got a nice blend of Simcoe and Citra hops that we put in there. And so it works just like champagne. Again, just like you said, like it works really well with food. It's very neutral. It's tasty. It can stand on its own, but it's not domineering. So we were real excited when we kind of figured that one out.
I absolutely love the level of carbonation. It's just so pleasant. It's lovely. I'm glad I wish I had more than just one more bottle of it. So
We'll come back a little more. I'll give you as much as you would like.
And I would love, seriously, like, and I know this is not practical for the size of your business, but I would love to get this in like a corked Magnum bottle at the holidays. And like we had that.
Oh, we have that. We have that for sure.
What?
Yeah.
I want to be the one that walks into the party with the Magnum of watercolor dreams. That's what I want to be.
Yeah, no problem. We literally have some hanging out. And then we also, I don't know if you saw, but like our growler program is a bottle exchange program with 750 milliliters and 1.5 liter Magnum. So, not only is our draft beer put into Magnums, but we definitely use the Magnums. Every time we do a bottle run, we make like just a couple Magnums. They don't sell all that well. So we typically give them to family and friends or maybe clients or,
order ahead, like give 48 hours notice.
Yeah, I mean, for you, no problem. No problem.
Yes.
I'll put your name on one of them.
And I love that it's 3.5%. Like I want, maybe it's because we're getting older, but like I want more session, low alcohol beers in my life. That's what I want. Yeah.
Again, like, alcohol is certainly not good for you. Let's get that on the table. Ethanol is poison. However, it's like at 3.5%, the liver is extremely resilient. And, beer is a whole food. It's made from whole grain. Well, presumably, like there are beers made from lots of adjuncts and that are not nutritionally complete, but nonetheless, most beers are whole foods. They're made from whole wheat, they're made from whole barley, whole rye, whole spelt, and so they have just a suite of nutrition. And I'm with you. I would rather drink more beer. I would rather drink 3% pints as opposed to sort of like 9% beer. Because again, like that's the point of beer in the way that we do it. It's social. It is inherently social. It's meant, our brewery tap room is meant for gathering, and gathering again is meant for throwing a few back. I grew up in Europe, and people don't drink like they drink here over in Europe. I mean, you go out, you have a few at the bar, and then you go home. But here we tend to drink a lot out and a lot at home. And so, yeah, we always envisioned like making products that could be just sort of like, you don't have to worry about whether you can drive home, or you don't have to worry about like, am I going to be slurring my words or something like that after a visit to Suspended? But, we have plenty of low ABV options.
Cheers to that. Are you drinking sparkling water, Wayne?
I'm actually drinking water that's not even sparkling, but it does have lemon in it.
Also a good choice.
Yes. Yeah. I'm really not a weeknight drinker these days. I tend to drink as an occasion more than anything, but
keeps it a treat.
Yeah, absolutely. But I do appreciate, I mean, in that vein, I do appreciate sessionable low alcohol beers. Yeah, because like you don't drink, like you're not drinking a beer to get drunk. Maybe college kids are, but like, a lot of us are drinking a beer because we enjoy drinking the beer. And so, I always say like when you get these crazy, like double-digit percentage, like pastry stouts or like weird, crazy barrel-aged things, they're amazing to taste. I love a 5-ounce pour of something like that. But that's like a little taste experience, whereas a beer is like you want to have the whole experience.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And, just to fess up in a sense, like we do have one beer on the menu. We have an Imperial Breakfast Stout, the Double Black Pearl. But the biggest pour that we offer is a 10-ounce pour. So we offer like 5 and 10 ounce pours of it. And, that's a very big anomaly on our menu. Just as the double black pearl, which is 2 black holes in orbit of one another. It's the rarest combination of binary stars. Most stars in our universe are binary stars, meaning there's 2 of them that orbit each other. The double black pearl is 2 black holes, which is sort of black hole. Black holes are the most dense form of matter that we know of. And so, because we do that collaboration with a coffee company, we always use their big, bold dark roast. And then, of course, we have just a medley of malts. And then, of course, a literal high gravity beer. So that's why we appropriately named it a double black pearl. But I'm with you. Yeah, again, like I'm drinking a 2.9% beer from Wildflower. My other favorite beer is the Form to Table that Ethan makes at Fermentary Form. And Jester King's Le Petit Prince. I always gravitate towards these little tiny beers. Tecate Light, I was just crushing in Mexico. 2SP, the Pony Boy is so tiny. I love, again, like these little tiny beers. Our porter is under 4%. The Watercolor Dreams is under 4%. The Leda is under 4%. All of these beers. We're canning a hoppy table beer next week called Gossamer. That's 3.5%. So, a lot of these beers, again, they're meant for function. They're meant for socialization. They're meant for flavor, not inebriation.
Yeah.
I think I still have a bottle of Form to Table in the cellar, actually.
Oh, do you?
I may have to break that out one of these days.
I had a bottle of, what was the one I got when we were there that I saved for like ever? I did finally drink it. I can't remember what it was.
Was it the soft, the Jasalt?
Oh, soft is so
No.
I usually just buy one bottle of everything when I'm there.
Yeah.
He
does the foods, he does the origins. Yeah, I love Ethan. He's so wonderful. He's been a great friend and a mentor to me, and everything he does.
Oh, that explains a lot.
Yeah,
there's always
really
connections.
Look up to him.
Connections to these people that brew good beer. Okay, makes sense. Just like Ethan from Stickman and his connection with our friends from the Referend.
Yeah, also super fantastic, lovely brewery. I was listening to that episode. It was really nice. It was such a treat because, again, like they make such good beer.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We are really lucky. And there's great craft beer all over the country, but there's just really something special about this region, the northeastern part. So many, and especially Philadelphia. We're very, very lucky to have the breweries. The lager started here in Philadelphia. In the first lager in the United States was brewed here. So, we have that rich lager history with many of us growing up drinking Yingling. But,
I just had a Yingling the other day. It's been a while.
It's so nostalgic. And I love that that's our nostalgia and not some of these other beers that you get, I guess, Baltimore, I knew I would get there, has the Natty Bow, which I will admit I didn't have until probably my mid to late 30s. Like I didn't, people from down there are like, yeah, that's what we grew up drinking. I'm like, it's beer. I don't have anything amazing to say anything about it, but I also don't really have anything terrible to say about it. But yeah, the mixed culture and spontaneous fermentation and the blending, the things that the Referend and Fermentary Form are doing, it's just like our little taste of Belgium without having to cross the ocean. It's the cheapest trip
to Belgium you will ever.
Yeah.
And they're so true to everything. The way that they've, again, I think that there was, the last decade in beer has been a lot of Disneyland. It's been a lot of sort of like Fruity Pebbles in beer and,
literally,
yes.
It's been a lot of this and that. And again, I don't want to stifle innovation or I don't want to stifle creativity or anything. I'm not beating anybody up. I think part of becoming an adult is learning how to say like, okay, that's something. It's not for me. You know, it's like, I don't have to hate anything that I don't like. Just because it's not for me, I don't have to hate it.
Right.
And so, you know, again, like, I don't want to beat anybody up. These things are just sort of not for me. But I think that there's a reason that Belgian beers, and, you know, in the beginning, all beers were sour, you know, and it was really the Belgians that learned how to lean into it and wrangle it and sort of lasso it in around a bouquet of other flavors, and really have it stand the test of time, and, you know, bottle condition and make it last through the years and have an identity of time and place. And, you know, there's a reason why it sticks around. I mean, you mentioned lager. I mean, there's a reason why lager is not only the best-selling style of beer, but it's the best-selling alcoholic beverage on the planet by volume and by dollar share, right? Because it's tasty and we love it, and people have a appreciation for it, and we've really sort of taken the time to learn how to do it well. And so, on that same note, I mean, it's the Belgian beers that we really are excited to sort of learn Belgian methods and really practice them and try to recreate that and be able to carry a flag of very rich tradition.
I always find
I also want to point out that this bottle was only $8. I love the fact that we can affordably buy beers like this and enjoy them.
Thanks. Yeah, selling beer is the thing I hate the most. I love making beer. I hate selling it.
Yeah, no one goes into brewing because they want to have to sell it. There's no art. Well, maybe there is art in selling it. That's a different kind of art, though.
Yeah, and you know, even that I get really conscious of, and I'm constantly thinking of ways that we can bring our prices down, and even amidst, like, you know, CO2 becoming in short supply and 350% more expensive. I mean, grain being 300% more expensive. I mean, we're small enough that, you know, we can sort of absorb the shock of that in our own tap room pretty well. And, you know, at wholesale, we can absorb the shock of that, you know, well enough. But yeah, we're really conscious of that. And it's hard because you want to have the price represent the labor that went into it. Like, you know, the watercolor dreams, for example, that takes a minimum of 6 months to make.
Wow.
Most beers are made within 2 to 3 weeks, especially in the craft world. And like the Leda, which is our lambic inspired beer, you know, we don't spontaneously ferment it, but everything else is very true to form. And, you know, that's a minimum of a year to make, which even in Belgian terms is a little bit young, but still it's, you know, a factor of like 18 times as long as a typical beer is I don't know, allotted to make. And so we try to be very conscious of that. We want to offer people these sort of otherworldly products, but at the same time, it's nice for us. We typically have at least one beer on special that's a $5 pint, so that really anyone can have a pint. And even that, if you just sort of want a 10-ounce glass of beer, it's, you know, $4. So, you know, we're very conscious of price. It's a very personal subject for me. I don't like it at all.
I know we've held you for a while, but Wayne, did you want to play?
Do we want to play a game?
Okay, I wasn't sure if you had one prepared.
No, I do. Of course, I have a game prepared.
Yes. Okay.
Of course, I have a game prepared. Now, the quality of the game is never guaranteed, but there will always be one. Yes. But yeah, why don't we play a game?
Great.
I feel weird doing all these transitions. It's weird not hearing Dan say these things.
I know. That's why you're in charge.
I'm in charge. I don't like being in charge. Well, yeah, let's play a game. Cheers, Internet. Welcome to Happy Fun Time Games. This is the podcast trivia segment that loves big yoga. Today, we actually have a brand new game. So speaking of like crazy and perhaps scary things going on in the world, there's a lot of things going on in the world of artificial intelligence right now.
Oh, no.
Whether or not, you know, it'll lead to a dystopian hellscape in the next few years or a utopia, I don't know, but it's fun to play with in the meantime. So I've been inserting some AI content into some of my games. And today is a new game that involves some machine stuff. So I'm calling it rumination or fabrication. So this is sort of a hybrid of two different games that we've played in the past. We play libation or fabrication all the time, which is where a game where I give you the name of a beer and you have to decide whether that beer is real or fake. We also play a game less often called Bad Beer Reviews, where I tell you a little excerpt from a particularly outrageous beer review and you have to like fill in the blank, blah, blah, blah. I haven't been playing that game a lot lately because I noticed that like the funniest reviews are also some of the most negative reviews, and I feel bad putting negative reviews for beers out into the ether. So I've kind of pulled that game back in. But anyway, this is sort of a hybrid of the two. So in this, I'm going to give you an excerpt from a beer review, and you have to guess whether it came from a real beer review or if it was written by artificial intelligence.
Wait. If the beer review was actually written by a human or if the beer review was written by AI?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's not... Yes. And it's not like...
This is going to be hard.
GPT.
Well, it's a combination of ChatGPT and Google Bard. Those are the two I have access to. But yeah, they won't be like full reviews. It's like a snippet, like a sentence. You know, it's either from a real beer review or it was written by a machine. So we'll start with Steph. We'll see how this goes. Our first excerpt of the game reads as follows. It's a symphony of flavors, except instead of violins and cellos, it's conducted by a mischievous monkey with a tangerine.
Oof.
I'll say that's real.
Steph is saying that is a real...
Wait, they're all real, but so
it was human
or
written.
AI.
Yeah.
Okay, I will say that it's written by a human.
You can say organic or synthetic.
Oh, I like that.
All right, Josie, what do you think? Was that a real person or was that an AI?
It sounds artificial, which, I don't know, it's so... The fact that you pulled it as the first one makes me think, like, I don't know, maybe he's trying to fool us. Or maybe
Don't think too hard. The more you think about it, the harder it is to play the game.
All right, well, then I'll take the other side of the coin. I'll say artificial.
All right, saying that one is synthetic, artificial, fake, whatever you want to call it. You are correct. That one was dreamed up by... That one was from ChatGPT, which tends to give wordier responses than Bard, I found. So that one was indeed fake, false, not real. We'll skip over.
I quite like that review, though.
I know, it's pretty good, right? It is pretty
It
good.
was.
Yeah, it wasn't bad at all. Which is like amusing and a little scary.
Oh, true.
Josie, you are going to guess next on the next one. Our next beer review excerpt reads as follows. This beer was ahead of its time. But honestly, I hope its time is when I am long dead.
Ooh. Yeah, that was real cheeky. So I think that's legit. I think that was the genesis of that was from a human.
All right, saying that was human created. Steph, what do you think?
Yeah, I kind of think that was a human also.
Both saying
also,
human?
It's not like, the fact that artificial intelligence is sort of referencing death. I mean, or even, I don't know. It was too morose. I don't know. It was, I don't know. I'm sticking with human.
For all the reasons you just articulated, you are in fact correct. That came from a person and not from ChatGPT. And that is, as I said a moment ago, I just said I don't like doing negative beer reviews, and that is indeed a negative beer review. But the beer in question is Budweiser and Clamato Chelada, so I kind of don't feel that bad. Which is a very polarizing beer. I mean, I think anyone could admit that.
And that review is pretty spot on.
I mean... All right, flipping back to Steph to guess first on this one. Our next beer review excerpt reads, there's a pastiness in the peripheral that fastens the bourbon adhesion to coffee beans.
AI.
All right, Steph is saying that is machine speak.
Or
Josie,
really, really, really drunk person.
Yeah, that's artificial for sure. I mean, a lot of these reviews are like negative reviews tend to be people that think they're a lot more clever than they are. So, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if it was a human, but it smells oily to me.
It smells like bits.
Yeah.
Well, your scent is off because that was, in fact, real.
What's the beer?
That was Toppling Goliath Brewing Company's Kentucky Brunch Brand Stout, which I think is the highest rated beer on Beer Advocate right now. Because for the real ones, I went to Beer Advocate, and usually I used to go to Beer Advocate and find like the worst ratings. And I was like, well, let me like go to the beers that are actually rated well and see if anybody's written anything clever in there. So that's where that came from. This person, yeah. This person has a lot of reviews, and they're all very wordy in this weird kind of stream of consciousness way. So I mean, if you have a few hours to kill it, it's interesting. I don't have their username, but you could just Google what I just said, and I'm sure it'll come up.
What's funny, I specifically don't read reviews at all. I just kind of feel like I know if we're putting out something cool and if we're putting out something not cool. So, I mean, we don't ever put out anything that I think is not cool, but like when we make things, I know if it's cool, and if it's not cool, it doesn't go on tap. So, you know, I know some people may not be for them, but yeah, I definitely do not read reviews at all.
I don't think we've ever met a brewer doing this podcast that thought reading reviews was at all helpful in any way. I think that's a pretty common sentiment. I mean, most brewers probably don't read reviews, and the ones that do probably don't put a lot of stock in them.
Well, most of the brewers I know, they do read reviews. They do. In fact, we're so small that it's like I can't at all like let that try to even penetrate my psyche. I just have to kind of coach myself into like, no. Like, you know, don't worry about that. Just you can't tend two fields at once. You just focus on the one thing you're doing. And but yeah, definitely most of my peers confirm to me all the time that they read reviews.
That's an unhealthy lifestyle choice, in my opinion.
I mean, you just have to have a really good, healthy handle on your own ego to go through that. I mean, really, I can't imagine if I put, if I on a regular basis the podcast comes to mind as an example, but we don't really get a lot of shit for the podcast. So, but if I regularly put like a craft of mine out into the world and then had like all this feedback coming in, I mean, I think it would get to me.
We're pretty lucky. People are pretty nice to us. Like they're really, really nice to us. And the people that aren't, it's very clear why they aren't. And thank goodness those people are far and few between. So, but I don't know. I don't read Untapped reviews, so maybe people are not as kind there.
It'd be a little Wild West.
A little
bit. I don't use Untapped, so I don't really go on there much either. Moving on to we are on number 4. I almost said beer. These aren't beers. These are beer reviews of the game. And since it's an even number, that means Josie is guessing first. Our following excerpt reads as follows. This beer tastes like a unicorn farted in my mouth.
That's real. That's real, for sure. I think I even know the beer.
Okay, saying that is a person who said those words. Steph, what do you think?
It makes me think of all isn't it Saucony that does the unicorn? Well, Pipeworks does unicorn beers too. I think it's real.
Both saying real, both saying a human. You are both wrong.
Oh, man.
That was dreamed up by, I think that one was Google Bard. I didn't mark which one was which, but I think that one was Google Bard. So the interesting thing is, you can't just go to an AI and be like, write this game for me, and then it's done. Like, it's a collaborative, iterative process. So, like, I got a bunch of like throwaway content distilled down to what's in the actual game. So much of it referenced unicorns. So much of it. Unicorns, Lucky Charms, sprinkles, chocolate chips, hugs, which is nice. Lots of hugs. Tree houses, which is also nice. But these themes just like kept coming up, and I don't know why. So like unicorn just must show up in a lot of beer reviews.
So what do you just type in there, give me a beer review? Like, what do you actually have to type in to get these out?
So give me examples of excerpts of beer reviews that are slightly humorous, something, and then it gives me some, and I'm like, okay, well, go in a little different direction. Or the first, it was like, this beer tastes like this. This beer tastes like this. I was like, okay, don't make every one of them exactly the same. So yeah, it's like a really fancy chatbot. It's all text prompts, and then it thinks, and then it gives you a response.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's
terrifying.
It's. I mean, I think the underlying technology is incredibly fascinating, but it is also scary. Moving on, and we have come to our penultimate entry of the game. Only 2 more to go. Steph, you are guessing first on this one, and this review reads as follows. Imagine a wizard casting a spell on your taste buds, turning them into tiny jazz musicians, jamming to a funky rhythm.
Oh my gosh. Well, so I want to say it's a human, but I've been wrong most of the time, so I will say it is AI.
All right, so it is fake. Josie, what do you think?
I'm literally just guessing. I don't. I feel no confidence in my answer. Just to preface that way. Yeah, I would. I mean, it sounds artificial. Like no thoughtful. Well, yeesh, maybe I shouldn't say that. Like, it doesn't seem like that's a very good string of words to critique a beer with.
It almost sounds like it was written by a stochastic parrot that was just using statistics to guess what the next word might be. It almost reads like that because that's what it was.
Okay. Thank goodness. I mean,
I'm giving you fake for that answer. I don't know if you actually said it was fake. You were going
that was eroding away at the totem.
Yes. No, that one was indeed fake. Jazz music, also something that came up fairly often in these beer reviews. Don't know what that means. Deep in that latent space, something about jazz connects to beer. I don't know why. We are on our final entry of the game. And so at this point, I'm going to add up the scores real quick just to see where everybody stands. And if I have been keeping score correctly, Josie, you have 3 points. You have 2 points. Out of 5, not too bad. Could be worse.
Yeah, it could have been way worse.
Could have been worse. So since Steph is losing, we're going to let Steph guess after Josie, so she at least gets to hear your answer first, and that can play into her strategy. Doesn't usually help, but that's how we do it. Okay. So our final entry of the game reads as follows. This is the liquid version of a deep breath in the middle of a pine forest surrounded by pillowy clouds.
That, again, that has to be artificial. I really, really, really hope, that's artificial.
All right. Saying artificial and really hoping he is correct. Steph, what do you think?
Well, I guess I have to say that it's a human then, if I have any chance of even tying for first. So I will say it's a human. And if it is, it was probably a hazy IPA.
Well, Steph, it was indeed a human. That was written by a real, actual person, which means you've tied the game. I don't have to do any fancy math this time because there's only 2 people playing. Not only have you tied the game, but I actually am curious what particular beer you think that review is for. Now, remember, all the real reviews came from Beer
Is it Cloudy
Advocate.
and Cumbersome from Levante?
All the beer reviews I picked are like some of the top-rated beers on Beer Advocate, if that helps.
Oh, no, I would say Heady Topper.
You would say Heady Topper?
I would say Pliny the Elder.
Oh, good guess. I didn't think of Pliny because Heady Topper is the correct answer. Yes. It was, in fact, a review for Heady Topper, which all these years later is still at the top of the list on Beer Advocate, which is nice. So I'm going to give Steph 3.5 points. So she actually wins today. Steph wins the game with a half a bonus
from behind win.
Yes, but Josie,
your reign last.
A very respectable showing, 50% hit rate with 3 out of 6 correct. So there you go. Another way for me to be lazy and let artificial intelligence do part of my job for me. Thank you very much.
At least it wasn't anagrams.
At least it wasn't anagrams or spelling. We did spelling before.
Yeah.
There's only so many types of games that you can play in an audio only format in a theme of beer and brewing that isn't actually like really technical beer trivia, because I don't want to put people on the spot like that. But thank you all for playing. This was I think a good first outing, a good debut of rumination.
Hats off to you. That's very creative.
Thank you. I actually think I would like to try and do this game again, but just write the fake answers myself, because I'm so burnt out of coming up with fake beer names. But I think writing fake beer reviews is something I could tap into some untapped creativity there.
I have 100% faith in you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Someone who's known me for an hour and 38 minutes.
Intimately, though.
But I will take it. Yes, this is true.
It's the time spent. It's the quality of the time spent, not the totality of the time spent.
This is true.
Well, as someone who has known you for every minute of your existence, I also have faith in you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I do appreciate that. I did make some notes. I noted down about how much unicorns came up, tree houses, hugs, sprinkles, chocolates. Oh, leprechauns and Lucky Charms. A lot of leprechauns came up. Also, Chat GPT seems to think that pirate ships have attics, because it said one was about finding a treasure chest in the attic of a pirate ship. So I don't know. Probably thinks there's a basement in the Alamo too.
Well, and it's what's interesting is so I've talked about the Republicans Instagram page who turns all of the politicians into drag queens. They mentioned, because every now and then they'll post one and they'll be like, can you find the silly error in the image? And it's often hands and feet. Like there'll be hands that are missing a finger or have additional fingers that don't belong there. So that's the constant in the AI drag queen creation.
Yeah, well, that was a thing, and a lot of the generative image AIs were giving people like crazy amounts of fingers and stuff. That's improved a bit, but
well, maybe it's like they're all just watching The Simpsons, it's like, or watching cartoons that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in a very real sense, they have watched The Simpsons. I mean, they're trained on data sets culled from the internet. These things know what The Simpsons are.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, it's a plethora of pop culture distilled into things that are meant to be very funny and meaningful to human populations. So, I wouldn't be surprised if it's sort of literally analyzing the digits on their hands.
Absolutely. I do also want to read one of the review candidates that it gave me that was particularly ridiculous. It says, this beer is so rare, I'm not sure if it's even real or if it's just a figment of my imagination or if it's a unicorn fart that I'm drinking right now and eating Lucky Charms and rolling around in chocolate chips and sprinkles, and I'm never going to wake up from this dream because it's the best dream I've ever had.
Wow. So DuClaw has a beer called Unicorn Farts. DuClaw is a beer, a brewery that's here in Baltimore, and they have a beer literally called Unicorn Farts. It's got glitter in it and whatnot, and they do it in support of colon cancer. Like, it's got a lot of poop themes, a lot of bowel themes, but I was thinking like, oh man, and like you said, Pipeworks as the Ninja versus Unicorn, and I'm sure there are a plethora of unicorn named and themed beers. So, I don't know. It's not all that crazy to me.
Yeah. It's just, and like Lucky Charms, like there was a lot, like at least one, if not a few, like Lucky Charm stunt beers that came out that had Lucky Charms in them that got a lot of press. And again, like the more it's mentioned on the internet, the more this has read about it. So I guess that's why these things show up so much. But yeah. The attic of a pirate ship.
You may need to revive your Untapped account just so you can check in beers and use AI to come up with your comments.
Oh, that's not a bad idea.
That would be amazing. Or you could even, I'm sure the Beer Busters probably still has our Untapped.
Oh,
just
yeah, I go on there.
Random beers and just like copy and paste these absurd reviews in there.
You can just trash all suspended beers. Don't worry.
Well, yeah, and we should just do it to the people who know. Like Ethan at Stickman would freaking love it.
Oh, he'd love that
because he goes on now and then. Like just the breweries that the dudes at Human Robot, I'm sure they would appreciate it.
Yeah,
just absurd comments.
That would be that's not a bad idea. I use the Beer Busters on tap for libation or fabrication, because like when you come up with like a funny fake beer name, it's like a 50-50 shot if someone else has already come up with it and made that beer. So I always go to Untapped and search for it.
Untapped is like the go-to.
It's like, if it's not on Untapped, it doesn't exist. Right. And homebrews don't count. Anyway, we do have a little bit of housekeeping to get to. So we do have to shout out to our most generous patrons on Patreon who keep the lights on here at Beer Busters Podcast Central. As our patrons are aware and regular listeners, there are funny, goofy sound effects and clips that play from our soundboard every time I read the names. We won't actually be hearing them this time around since they aren't playing live. So I'll be curious to see what sound effects Dan puts in for all of these names in post. It's a mystery to us. You know it, listener. We do not. Thank you to the following people: Jen McDonald.
Don't go to Applebee's. Come to Stickman.
Eric Dixon.
Well, we said fuck. I can say shit.
Dana.
Intro.
James Lamberg.
I like toots.
Chris Mahoney. Oh, mine? It's not hard. Sean Sullivan.
Nah, that's a solid pepper.
Brian Mills.
Hell no.
Jill Chivers,
You bastards.
the one and only that is no baloney, Joe Mansell,
Give me fuel, give me fire, give me that which I desire.
Topher Simmons,
Come on, Barbie, let's go party.
and Ben Mangle.
What site are you on?
If you want to find out how you can get your name on this list and get cool other behind the scenes perks, go to patreon.com/beerbusters. We're playing the game very late in the episode, so you may hear commercials now, or you may have already heard them. I'm not sure.
Say, Yvonne, remember when I said I'd have to send away to NASA to calculate your bar tab?
Oh, yeah. We all had a good laugh, Mo.
The results came back today. You owe me $70 billion.
A few years ago, I tried to brew my own beer, very first time I'd ever done it at home, and it did not turn out very well. Things would have been very different if I had myself a Brooklyn Brew Shop beer-making kit. They've been empowering the kitchen curious since 2009, and these beer kits are compact, attractive, and easy to use. And that keeps the space-strapped brewers in mind. You get the same ingredients at home as world-class craft brewers. There's no extract, no sugar powders. Just grain, hops, yeast, and depending on the beer, fun and exotic spices. Each kit comes with everything you need to make professional quality beer in your very own home. And you can even choose a kit for hard cider, wine, or sparkling wine kit too. If you want to get a little more adventurous, they have a new line called Farm Steady do-it-yourself food kits. For cheese, for fermentation, baking, foraging, and more, you get to make stuff at home that you would never think you'd get to do. Bagels and cream cheese, soft pretzels with beer cheese, fresh Italian cheeses, and sauerkraut. And if you visit bit.ly/beerbustersbrooklyn, you're going to get free and fast shipping on orders over $59. Again, that's bit.ly/beerbustersbrooklyn.
There's a beer called Penultimate Unicorn.
There's a beer called Penultimate Unicorn.
That's if you would have put that in a game, I would have thought it was fake because I totally would have thought you made it up.
Nice. I'm writing that down.
You're the only person I know that uses the word penultimate as often as you do.
Yeah, it's a fun word. I like it.
Well, this has been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed talking to you and getting to know you and hearing your story and the passion behind Suspended and what you guys stand for. And please keep making these amazing, tasty beers. And I guarantee that every time I am in the Baltimore area, I will be stopping by at least for a lager and a bottle of Watercolor Dreams to go.
Thank you so much for having me. This was super cool. I'm really sad that we didn't get to connect in person when you were there. I apologize again. We're so small. I was definitely running around that day, but please come back. I would really, really, really love to have a beer with you two in person. I would love to continue these types of conversations. These are so cool. This is exactly why I left the happy realm of being a home brewer and actually made a company and decided to eat all the turds you have to eat in a company. So people like you make it worth it. Thank you so much for coming and supporting our little brewery. Thank you for having interest in our little brewery and having us on your cool podcast. And just thank you so much.
Awesome. If there are other people in the industry that would be curious about how to maybe be a little more mindful about their choices, can we connect them with you to maybe get advice on the great decisions that you guys have made as a company?
Yeah, we're still figuring everything out, but we're happy to figure it out with anyone and everyone who wants to figure it out with us.
I think that's one of the most rewarding parts of doing this podcast is the people that we've connected, people hearing other people's stories and wanting to do better or, make change in a positive way in the beer industry. And that's something we're very, very passionate about on our show. So hopefully we can connect you with people and, keep doing what you're doing because it's people are noticing and it is making a difference.
Cool. Well, thanks again. I'm here whenever you want to chat and whenever you need a beer.
For sure.
Awesome. Before
Wayne, I guess you have to do the outro.
I was going to say, I have a couple of things I got to do that Dan does at this point. It's suspendedbrewing.com is the website. Is there a particular social media channel that you guys are most active on, or where should people go if they want information?
Yeah, like everything, like our website, our accounting, our bookkeeping, our licensure, our permitting, our janitorial. I do it.
You do it, yeah.
The social media of choice is our Instagram. I run our social media as well. It's at Suspended Brewing. And it's the same for our Facebook. I'm not really sure. I know that the Instagram posts to the Facebook as well, but my partner, she kind of keeps tabs on that. So, but yeah, if you want to connect with me, I'm at Brewlove. I think there's an underscore in that, but if you just look at the Suspended Brewing page, you'll find me there. And yeah, if anybody wants to chat, if anybody wants to talk, I'm an open book. I also manage our website, and there's a contact box on suspendedbrewing.com. It goes right to my inbox. So yeah, I love to chat. I love to connect. And if you come to our tap room, you'll probably see just a small guy with tattoos in the back toiling and talking to himself. That's me. Just throw something at me or introduce yourself, and let's connect.
Awesome. I didn't say that. Unfortunately, this brings us to the end, and then the music starts of another episode of Beer Busters. Dan, if you want to put the music in here, put it in here. I think it's about 45 seconds long. So I'm going to talk for like roughly 45 seconds, what I think is 45 seconds in my head without looking at a clock, which I was better at doing when I used to cook, because you have to be good at that when you used to cook, but I don't cook for a living anymore, so I'm not as good as I used to be. I don't think I'm there yet, but I'm still rambling. Thank you so much. This has been so much fun. Don't forget to check out Beer Busters on the internet at all the places you can find us. Just Google Beer Busters. We are there. And we will see you next time. Goodbye.
Yay!
It's so weird without the music. I don't know what to do.